think I will touch upon some of the topics that Joachim mentioned, but in a slightly different way, slightly less story-like, perhaps. So this is a bit of a stirring a bit, I guess. I don't know if it's a great title, but for a talk, but perhaps we could instead call it who pulled the plug. So what happens when you have your network devices and the network goes away? So what could be the consequences of that? And why might it be a problem? Well, I sort of see this potential future scenario where we have an object, and it is an object that we have today, but tomorrow it is connected. And then somehow the network goes away. Will it then go back to being the dumb object of yesterday, or will it become a worse object because of that? And I'd just like to share some thoughts, and hopefully you will give me some feedback. So I came to think of this when I saw this advertisement. Are you familiar with this thing? It's a Anheuser-Busch, I guess, of Canada. Budweiser, the brewer of Budweiser beer, and they created this internet-connected light that you could configure it with your to correspond to your favorite hockey team, and it then is this sort of light that goes off whenever your team scores. So you could have this light in your study or in your living room or above your bed, and you would get this signal. And I don't know if it makes the siren noise as well, but you could have this in your home. And as I was looking at this offer to pre-order this object, which will start delivery in May, I think, and there was a clause I had to tick. If I was to order this, I would have to tick a box that says, I acknowledge that Anheuser-Busch, the provider of this product for me, can cease to continue their service making this object useful in this way. So they might cut off the service that makes the light go off whenever my team scores at any time. I have to acknowledge that. So I find that what would you say, a displacement of responsibility in a way for this object. I mean, we have many objects. We have all this crap then around us that functions not very well, and we use it for some time and then we get rid of it. And is this something then that will continue into the more network connected stuff? Perhaps.
Action.
This is a project. I've lost my notes here, so I'll just improvise a bit. This is the
Action.
DRM chair that tells you how many uses are left after you sit on it, and it supports the sitting of 8 people. Yes, it might support a 9th person if you're really quick, but you don't stay for very long. I guess, a possible consequence. If we sort of take this proprietary technologies that we sometimes see on the internet and we take them into the physical world as well. I just think we have to think about what the consequences may be of that. And this is Nabastag. Have you seen this rabbit-like device before? Yeah, a few of you. So it's this guy has lost his ears in a fight or something, and basically there are some lights inside. It was made by a French company originally, and it has some things inside. It has a button, and it has some lights, has a speaker. You can go online, or you could go online and you could configure it to download your podcasts and then play back these podcasts for you in the morning, for example, and it could do some other things like that. But then something happened with this company. They could not support their service anymore, so the service went down. It was bought up by another company who started again to provide this service to make this rabbit come to life. So for a while, sort of the rabbit died, and then it came back, and then the rabbit died again, because there was simply no business sense in keeping these services running. So what happened in the end was that they sort of released some information on protocols and things like that, so you could get these some of these rabbits up and running again. And but you need it's not for the faint of heart. You need some sort of technical skills to make it work again. So that's in a way, I guess, sort of a positive story, depending on if you think of this as a product that should last you a while, or if you think of it as something that you buy and then you play with for a bit and then throw away. So I tried to think about this problem, and maybe there isn't really a solution, but rather maybe a series of possible responses from different directions. And here I'd be happy to hear some suggestions on what other responses may be. So if we talk about legislation, for example, what if you create a law that says that services have to, if you buy a product that's connected to the network, it has to support, the network has to support the object and the product for some time. I don't know, it doesn't seem very likely to work for me. But here is sort of one case, and I'd like to perhaps hear some input from Jimmy and Andreas on this case. So that there was a time when cars were sort of starting to develop brains and get more and more clever, and you would get these the car computer telling you that something's wrong with the car and that you need to take it to the mechanic to figure out what. And to me, it seems, you have to sort of fill me in and correct me a bit, but it seemed to me that the development was towards a situation where you would have to take your Volvo car to a Volvo mechanic, and no one else could do anything to the car, because you needed this special electronics and special equipment to get into the car and fix it. But then there was legislation. Or do you want to fill me in a bit?
Something, of course. Hello, Andreas is my name. We're speaking about the onboard diagnosis, or the OBD, OBD1 and OBD2. The OBD was established in America in 1996, and we need to find a standardization with a language, how to communicate with the vehicle's onboard systems. We're talking about ECUs. We need to connect with one another. We have headlights, we have entertainment displays, we've got the radio, and then etc. So this was standard in America in 1996, and in Europe roughly 2002, 2003. So this is a terrific device. This is the canvas which is speaking, and for today, when you need to go to Sweden, we have every 2 years, or for older car every one time a year, you need to go to the speed proving. You need to go and assure your vehicle is road legal. And basically what happens if you're a mechanic or working with this road legalization firm, is simply just plug in a computer that reads out full codes from your vehicle. And this is a peer-to-peer network. So if the car is alright and you have no fault codes, everything is fine. And basically what we have done is we are working, I'm working at a company called Rated-M, and we have implemented this onboard diagnostics and tried to do something else about it. And well, you guys are speaking about networking to network. So actually I have in my pocket how to implement this to a network. You have a small hardware device which you can buy from roughly $30 and up. This connects your car to your phone, and now it's available. So we are actually having an application, and we're working with the terms driver fuel efficiency, which means what can you as a driver actually do, and what lays on your shoulders. I'm a Swedish guy and I drive a Volvo, and for instance if I put a 20-ton luggage at the back, how many % extra do I carry on my shoulder as a driver, fuel efficiency? So this is for saving cash and reducing carbon dioxide and so on. And we have applications, and we're doing this for 10 years with personal cars and lorries as well. So hopefully in a couple of years, I am just waiting for have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth on board the vehicle when it rolls out from the sample station. Yes, sir.
Have you looked into Automatic? It's a service in the USA which actually does exactly that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would be surprised if you weren't aware of it. But
We're actually speaking with them, and we're all aiming at the same goal.
Yes.
But in another point of view. For instance, you can take an example. If you need to know your cost when you're driving fuel efficiency, and as well, if you like, you have for instance, a Ferrari, or Porsche, or a June car. What's the cash actually put down to actually drive on a sports track and so on? It gives you an actual weight of the cost for driving harsh, and as well, it gives you a realization of the cost when you're driving driver fuel efficiency, so to speak. And as well, a future, for instance, if you have a car and you're starting it from a cold start from 20 minus degrees Celsius, it takes 15, 20, 25 minutes, depending on which car it is as well, or a truck or whatever, to get it. What's the cost extra? Cold starting vehicle. How much cash could I save if I have an engine?
preheated, warmed up?
A warmer system to warm the engine. How much cash can I save? And as well, of course, the big question, the carbon dioxide. What can I save? The CO2.
Yeah, so that's, to me, this seems like it's possible to build a service like this that is general across different car makes.
Yes. Because
of this legislation, this piece of legislation that was introduced first in the US and then now in the European Union as well from the 2001-2004. And so that there might be an opportunity for legislation to sort of enforce some standards. There are very strict rules to this. Your OBD port has to be sort of 60 centimeters away from your steering wheel at a maximum, and there are very strict rules for how it has to be implemented, from what I understand. And we here at Siggy, we're also working on we're playing around with similar technology to see what the smart car might be. And so this is perhaps one area where you could enforce standardization in order to make it easier to create new platforms, I guess, for new products and services. Openness, we all know what that might might mean and might not mean. An example might be the good night lamp, which is it's a kit of a large network connected lamp, and then a smaller lamp that lights up automatically every time you flip the switch on the big one. So not having the network on this product sort of cuts away the little lamp, and if you use it, for example, for a communications device with perhaps a partner living somewhere else, or another part of your family, the light not lighting up might mean something for you, so that can have consequences. But I'll get back to the openness a little bit later as well. So yeah, again, this part of the device still continues to function, but part of it sort of goes away. I was thinking maybe there could be some sort of hosting with a built-in live support. So could that be perhaps through using a third-party service to host the data and the services in order to run your device? And there are already services like that, like Cosm and OpenSense and different services like that. But it's maybe difficult to communicate to a consumer or to someone buying your product that you also need to have this service subscription, or even if you sort of attach it to the price of the product, it will only last for so long. So maybe the market can sort this out itself, as long as there's sufficient demand for a service, if the service will be kept running. So I guess that was not the case with this guy. But you have to sort of use some elbow grease in the end if you want your device to keep running and not just be a white blob blinking error codes at you whenever you look at it. And on the other hand, when a service ceases to be profitable, it will go away, and yeah, sometimes prematurely. And maybe there are cases also where the market can't quite support it. I had to go outside the Internet of Things to find some examples of where this might have happened. This is the multiple arcade machine emulator. It's a project to take the software out of old arcade machines for enthusiasts and find a way to run those old games from arcade machines on modern, normal computers, basically. So there's a bunch of enthusiasts working on this, and there's creation of niche products like a way to connect, for example, old Nintendo 8-bit controllers to your USB port today, and yeah, different things like that. And yeah, there's no real big business here, it seems. It's all these little small series niche manufacturers. So it seems like it's a difficult business case, to me at least. So could there be some kind of manifesto for makers and designers of these things? Yeah, that has happened before, I guess, in different areas and has worked well in some cases and less well in other cases. But there's, for example, something called the Open IoT Definition that was put together last summer by a group of enthusiasts, I guess, as well. And it covers some things. It covers accessibility of your data. It covers how you can allow different devices and different companies to get access to bits of your data, but not all of it. And yeah, so this is something that could be a starting point. But if we want to not just keep making the same types of products that we have been making, and really make them smarter in a different sense, then I think we need to look at these different directions for answers. So, does this ring a bell with any of you who are working with and thinking about these things?
I did a speculative project about the Internet of Things. And one of the areas I was addressing was what happens when the infrastructure collapses. And I was thinking less about specific products and more about the whole internet infrastructure, and sort of what if there was an internet blackout, like we have electricity blackouts. Because the sort of structure of cities really relies on this increasingly. And for example, when there was the hurricane in New York, you saw that everything just stopped for like a whole week. And one of the ideas I had was that companies like Google, Chrome or something like that could produce a sort of candle product that acts like a sort of temporary internet infrastructure generator when something collapses. So sort of these umbrella companies that try to sort of provide a backup. And I did quite a lot of user research into sort of how people think about the internet, and it's actually now a psychological, what's the word? Like it's actually classed as a sort of a condition that people have fear of being disconnected, and psychologists recognise this now, which I think is actually quite fascinating. And sort of, how do we deal with that? It becomes a necessity. It's not going to go away.
But that's also about, I mean, and I think that happened. There were groups sort of creating wireless mesh networks and setting up mobile phone charging stations in the streets, running on generators and things like that. So that's sort of the basic network layer. But then there's all these sort of proprietary services that run on top, and so that's
it's very interesting.
what I would like to get at. I mean, of course, there's sort of the difference between maybe the platform building. You could have more generalized services, but then for some cases you of course need more specialized services. So there's a difficult trade-off there, I think, to make it more utility-like, whatever your device is plugged into.
Well, there's a comfort area in that the internet was originally designed to withstand a nuclear weapons attack. That's why it was built. So it is rather stable.
But I mean, already, for example, if iTunes collapsed, like you've got no use for you can't really use the Apple software anymore.
But that's the same with television set for anything.
I have to say something to this nuclear strike thing. Of course, it's supposed to withstand it in a whole, but regionally we have seen that the internet can be failing for a certain time.
Absolutely.
And it was built to shine cat images as well during the nuclear strike. But I mean, some of these services, they're not designed to be used unless you have an internet connection. Use Spotify, it was designed to play music as you pay for the service, and the service is available. I use cloud backup services. I've changed it at least once. They changed the price, and I didn't want to trade for that, so I changed to another provider. I think it's some part of what we see as services now is we think of it as something, I'm buying this and it will be there forever, but it will not if they collapse. I'm only buying this backup service as long as they can provide it.
Maybe we'll see more subscription services, so if the service ends, you stop paying a subscription, but you haven't lost, you haven't bought the product.
Yeah, exactly. I guess it's the licensing model sort of applied to physical products.
But the thing is, like, when you go for like iTunes, you know, I don't know if you heard about Bruce Willis. You know, he has this iTunes library, like thousands of dollars, and he wanted to give it to his daughters, and iTunes said like, no, you cannot transfer it to your kids. It's licensed to you. So, I mean, I think like the things that we used to know as obsolete materials now is becoming more blunt and gray area. So you have to wait for industrial standards, but there is no industry. There are like maybe one or two companies that is driving this. So this is like you're dependent to Google, Yahoo, or I don't know. But we are in an era of which is everything is gray. You don't have any standards, and everyone is experimenting. So maybe it will take another 20 years to understand what is the limit, what is good for us, what is bad for humanity. So I think it's the age of for doing things right now, to experiment, to see what's the challenge. What are we going to do with this kind of stuff? What is Internet of Things anyway? I mean, this is the okay, the technology is mature enough to maybe build some service, but do we really need the service right now? Or what is the future of the service? And we always keep talking about B2 customer, but what about B2Bs? We don't talk about B2Bs. I mean, there is a definite need of business to business. I mean, and this is where the money is. But this area is kind of blurry. I mean, I work with this stuff, and then when it comes to B2Bs, businesses are like, oh, okay, we don't touch this, okay. But, I mean, we need to experiment to see stuff, so, yeah. I guess we have to propose something.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a couple of years ago, Monica Lam in Stanford was asking the question, what happens if Facebook goes bust? What happens to your data there? And I mean, then a lot of people collect a lot of data in this infrastructure that's sort of suddenly maybe not accessible anymore. And today Facebook is losing customers. Less and less people are using it. Eventually it might go bust, you never know, or one of the other big ones. So it's also about the data and not just the service. And if you have, like, say, your car and you have your onboard diagnostic stored in the cloud and that service goes bust, what happens to your car then? Because the manufacturer wanted to save a few cents by not putting so much memory on the car, perhaps. I don't know. But what comes to mind as a possible solution is what you use in finance quite often, is where you have sort of separation of business. You separate your business as two parts. You have one part which is really taking care of the data, running the operation, and not taking any risk, and that becomes sort of a trust. You make it into trust, perhaps. And the other part, the marketing and attracting customers and taking all the financial risk, is put in a stock company. And that's in that way. If the company goes bust, the trust is still there and the data is still around. And as, for instance, I think this is the way they do it for investment funds, for instance. So if your bank goes bust, your investment funds are safe. So maybe that could also work for data, but maybe there's some extra legislation needed for what happens in these cases, because nobody knows right now what's going to happen. What does the law say about? Do you have the right to your data in Facebook? Can you ask the bankruptcy lawyer for your data later on?
What if a loan shark gets hold of the data?
Yeah, exactly. I was envisioning this when you buy the bankrupt service provider and you start broadcasting some kind of advertisement messages through all the connected alarm clocks, or because
I must say something though. Why are we always in this discussion trying to invent problems or focus on the problems? Why don't we focus more on the possibilities? I agree, some of these things you mentioned are problematic, but most of them aren't. The most recent example now is Google Reader shutting down in 2 months. I have invested years in my Google Reader account. I have lots of important stuff there. And there are, since that news broke about a month ago, there are a gazillion news services saying, import your Google Reader streams to us and we'll fix it for you. And then you do it with sort of 2 clicks. So that's what will happen. I mean, they're not shutting down these services in an instant. There's usually a forewarning, so to say.
It's like when MobileMe went over to iCloud.
Yeah, exactly. You can move. Digital data is the most easy of all things to move with, as opposed to your car or
if you can
whatever.
access it.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Even Saab is closing down their car factory. There is still independent service for those cars, even though the factory doesn't exist.
But it's basically a backup issue. I mean, everybody who deals with backup knows you shouldn't have just one copy of your files. You should have it on.
But I do understand your concern, but the thing is, it's easier to fix an existing problem rather than creating a need, which Apple did for a long time. Rather than like creating a need of people that didn't know that they needed actually the fact that they need this material or a service or object. So it needs much more higher intelligence and much more market research than fixing a current existing problem. So I guess that's why you're focusing on it.
Yeah, well, I see your point, and as for data storage, that's one thing. You can with Google Reader, I would say that's a very good case of the openness, where you can even get the metadata, your likes, and start articles and things out. But I'm perhaps more thinking about the services and the actual protocols that perhaps run in encrypted channels and these things that actually make your stuff work. And yeah. So it's more about the services and the sort of, perhaps then we get more towards file formats and how things are distributed. You can download all your data from Facebook, but then what do you do with it? Because there is, as far as I know, no service today that can actually parse that data to input it back up into a storage solution. But there might be, of course, but should we then rely on that?
There are companies that you can print books with your Facebook data in. It's not putting it back into a digital format, but it's giving you a physical copy.
Yeah, exactly. That's just
but if that's possible,
copy,
it's
but not
surely
the
possible
service.
to make it digital.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
800 million different books.
Thanks for the input. And I would also, I would just like to just say thanks for showing up and for having a beer or two and listening to Joachim and me. And thanks to Joachim for coming here and telling some stories about connected things. I hope to do one more meetup before the summer. A little bit depending on when my first child is born and how I can work that out. And as I said, if you have any suggestions for a theme or a speaker, just let me know and I'll look into it. And yeah, hang around for a bit. Drink some more beer, courtesy of Ziggy Creative Colony, who's been hosting us today, my employer. Yeah, I hope to see more of you in the future.
I have a suggestion for the next thing.
Yep.
Let's focus on possibilities and come up with the most unexpected uses of Internet of Things. So far it's mostly about logistics or efficient control of stuff. It's very good and very useful and very good economics. But there are also some wild and crazy examples that might develop into interesting things.
Yep.
Let's dig up more examples of those and
Yep.
demo them.
Yeah, I might dig up some more sort of speculative examples as well, because I find that's sort of wild and crazy and challenging the assumptions and things as well. But that's a good point. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. If you want the boring stuff, you should go to EVA tomorrow. They have an
exactly.
internet
EVA.
thing.
Yeah.
EVA,
EVA to discuss this.
Sorry?
You said EVA.
EVA.
Yeah.
This.
Yeah, I know.
They made a report talking about what Sweden can earn in terms of financial.
Yeah. There will be a lot of PowerPoint slides with
and heavy industries.
PowerPoint stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of those people will be the guys who are actually building this.
I will be there.
Yeah? Yeah? So, yeah, I'm going to see what they're planning for our future. So, yeah. Thank you very much for coming today.